Across Perth and Kinloch, young people have been coming together to explore, discover and share their knowledge of their local history. They are known as the Young Heritage Ambassadors. In this film, we will be taking a look at some of the exciting discoveries made by the ambassadors as they identify just what makes their towns and villages unique and special. Exploration, research, imaginative investigation, and the sharing of stories and songs have brought the past to life, and with it the realization that local culture and heritage is important to us. It's vitally important to share what we know, or it could be lost forever. So let's take a small glimpse at what has been discovered. We start our journey in Invergowrie at Dunbarney Primary School, where the Young Heritage Ambassadors have been researching and investigating historic events and changes to the area over the years. They have created a timeline of these changes and happenings. So let's take a look at part of their timeline.
Here at Dunbarney Primary School, the Young Heritage Ambassadors have created a timeline of Invergowrie. We start in 1651. Cromwell camped in Invergowrie before marching to the gates of Perth to take it over. Around this time, a tree was planted here and has now become known as the Cromwell tree, but we can't be sure if it really was Cromwell who actually planted it.
Cromwell made a citadel on the south bench in Perth and used stones from the Perth Bridge, hospital, houses and even gravestones. Whilst no longer standing, it is believed to have stood in the location of the South Bench car park.
The Jacobites led by General Myers took over Perth in 1715. They also camped in Invergowrie. They used the windows, doors and tables from the parish school as firewood.
In 1726, Walter Wilson attempted to rob a storehouse full of expensive things, but he failed, so he got caught and was jailed. His sister helped him to escape by switching clothes, and she took his place in the Perth jailhouse.
A short distance from Invergowrie is a small village of Abernyte, not famous for any biscuits, but for a Pictish tower and a museum full of items belonging to Abernyte. It is here that we find the Abernyte ambassadors learning from their fountain of knowledge, Janet Payton. They have learned how the museum works, how it acquires and catalogues the artefacts to ensure that they are easily accessible. But they have learned so much more. The Young Heritage Ambassadors of Abernyte were so inspired by Janet and her seemingly limitless knowledge of the area that they created an illustrated story. Let's take a quick look at that before we go. We wandered up Death Lane and it suddenly struck us where we were. We were in Old Abernyte. It was so different, yet so similar. Janet's ancient chair had taken us back to the time when it was made, back in the 18th century. There was an old scroll, tattered and torn. Dylan opened it up and read it aloud.
If you choose to accept this quest, walk on and find my clues to success, and become a legend.
Rachel suddenly got hyper with excitement.
Across the Silvery Tay from Abernyte is an area of flat land formed when Scotland was all glaciers. This is the Carse of Gowrie. Here we find a village of houses that look like houses from anywhere else. Maybe we need to look closer. The Young Heritage Ambassadors of Errol Primary School have been doing just that.
Welcome to Errol!
The houses are very old. People made the houses by digging down in the earth to find the clay. The clay was mixed with sand, stones and straw to make the clay bricks.
There are about 40 clay houses in Errol. There are quite a lot of clay houses on the high street.
This is the post office. This is a clay building. Look at the slants and curves at the top.
My house is made out of clay and it's quite warm because it's got all the straw and stones and stuff in the clay, which keeps it well insulated.
The fish bar was made in 1897 and it has lots of cracks and lumps and bumps on the walls. The buildings have been painted to protect the clay from the weather.
Some clay houses have low roofs and doors. Some houses have clay brick extensions. The bricks have now run out.
This house has a higher part because in the old days horses and carriages needed to get through.
Well, I certainly never knew that. Clay houses? Now further along the Carse is a little village that sees more sunshine than anywhere else, apparently. Look, they even have a sculpture of the sunshine in the school grounds. No clay buildings here, but lots of interesting heritage nonetheless. The young heritage ambassadors at Invergowrie Primary School have been exploring their area and can tell us a little bit about some places of interest.
Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm here in the sunniest place in Scotland, Invergowrie. That's our new school. And over there, that's our old school, which was built 135 years ago.
Hi, I'm Ethan and I'm right beside Invergowrie Memorial Park. It's called that because people's names are right here who died in the war.
Dargie Church was founded in the 7th century. It was also the first Christian church on the north side of the Tay. There were 4 big farm grounds here in Dargie Church.
From Invergowrie, we leave the Carse, and just like the Cistercian monks who came from Coupar Angus to drain the Carse, we head back over the hill to Coupar Angus to find out what the young heritage ambassadors have been up to.
This is a wee story of our history of Coupar Angus that we have learned in our young heritage group.
In 1559, the abbey windows were smashed and much of the abbey was burned by Protestant reformers. A couple of years later, the last abbot, a man called Donald Campbell, gave the vast lands of the abbey to his 5 sons. There is only a tiny bit of the abbey left now. Much of the stones has been reused in the church, houses and barns in Coupar Angus.
We have a street in Coupar Angus named Cuddy's Wynd. Cuddy's is an old Scots word meaning carrying horse. This is the street that the horses were led down to the burn from the town for them to drink.
The burn in Coupar Angus has been very important through this time. It was used for drinking, washing, cooking and watering the horses. It was also used for throwing rubbish away. The children had to go down and collect water for their mums to use in the house. Coupar Angus Horse Fair started to celebrate the old horses and farmers buying and selling horses in an annual horse market, which was held every March for many years. The bakers sold gingerbread horses all week, and horses got medals for being the best looking.
The ambassadors also had a visit from Joe Richards of the Coupar Angus and District Heritage Association. A monastery is another name for a home for monks, and the young heritage ambassadors of Perth Academy discovered that at one time Perth had 3 monasteries. Visits to Perth Museum and Art Gallery and a talk and tour from Marjorie Knowles at St John's Kirk provided many clues as to what happened to the monasteries. The ambassadors used the information to create an illustrated timeline. So let's take a quick look at how they did it.
The Grey Friars, the Black Friars, and the White Friars are the 3 monasteries. The monasteries were there for monks who helped people in every way.
There were no doctors, so monks looked after people and they gave out money to the poor.
They took the money from the pure box and lived in comfort.
The monks became very greedy and wanted money for all of the services they held.
Perth was a busy place and a busy port. We were trading goods to Europe and people with goods came back. These people brought new ideas back with them.
A man called John Knox listened to the new ideas from Europe and agreed with them. On May 2nd, 1559, he gave a speech in St John's Kirk to a large crowd. His speech made everyone think and get excited.
A boy from the crowd was so excited he picked up a stone and threw it at the church. But the stone hit the priest in the face.
Without thinking, the priest lashes out because he was hurt from being hit with the stone. Well, he's so full of anger, he doesn't know what to do.
Staying in Perth, we go now to Goodleyburn Primary School, where the young heritage ambassadors have been exploring a very different area, Gaelic heritage.
Hello, I'm Jessica. I'm a Goodleyburn and Piast. I'm a young Gaelic heritage ambassador. We've been looking around Perth for information from the older days for our heritage trail.
As part of our heritage trail, we visited the city centre to look for clues about the history of Perth.
We went to the library and found old documents, newspapers, maps and old pictures. In 1774, it was felt that a Gaelic church was required in Perth so that the Highlanders could worship in their own tongue. Accordingly, in 1786, the first Gaelic church was opened on the Spey Ridge, a strip of ground on the south side of the town glade.
Here's a map of Perth in 1851. There used to be a Gaelic school in Perth near the city centre. Our school's on Crieff Road. On this map, it used to be a crop farm. The Gaelic for Crieff Road is Rad Crave, which means road of trees.
In addition to creating a heritage trail, the Goodleyburn ambassadors visited Moncrieff Hill to find a very interesting discovery being made at the top.
On the way up, we saw lots of interesting things. We followed the sculpture trail and we saw a lot of wildlife. As we were climbing the hill, we saw other hills with Gaelic names such as Kinloch Hill and Craigie Hill.
We found out that the Picts lived here thousands of years ago. We tried to imagine what it was like then. At the top of the hill, we saw people doing an archaeological dig, and they were uncovering a fort. It was fun watching the dig, and we found out that Moncrieff means Hill of the Trees.
We asked the archaeologists lots of questions about what they were doing.
There's lots of Gaelic around Perthshire. We just need to know where to look. As we head north to Blair Atholl, we will find that it is sometimes hidden in the standing stones and the names of hills and villages. The young heritage ambassadors have been learning about the Gaelic heritage of their area.
We learnt Gaelic at school. There was Gaelic all around us.
Blair is Gaelic for Blair Atholl.
Karen, Leah and Ben Vraki.
Tulloch Hill and Tulloch Road.
Even Pitlochry is a Gaelic word. We learned a Gaelic song at school about a man that was a soldier.
His name was Alistair Vick.
He came to the Atholl area.
He fought in the civil wars in Scotland in the 1640s.
On to Kinloch and the young heritage ambassadors have been learning a Gaelic song.
The song is said to have been sung by a fairy who was cutting bracken on the hillside. I wonder if this was Craigvar, as there is lots of bracken there. It also mentions a wood. Could this have been the Black Wood of Rannoch?
They have also been looking carefully at the natural heritage of their area.
This is Kinloch Rannoch. Kin comes from the Gaelic for head, and Rannoch is Gaelic for bracken. The scenery is spectacular, as we are surrounded by hills and mountains.
The mountain you're looking at is Shahaloon, which is known as the Hill of the Fairies.
Staying in the beautiful Highland Perthshire, we come to Glen, Lyon, home of the most amazing stories surrounding the standing stones and the mountains. Let's hear about some of them from the young heritage ambassadors of Glen Lyon Primary School.
In the Ice Age, when the ice was forming, it pushed the hard ground and it created the hills. On the hills were all the stones, but they all rolled down and landed in our glen.
I'm going to tell you about the sandalstone. The sandalstone was used for a battle. The clansmen put their sandals on the stone before fighting. If they lived, they collected their sandals. If some sandals were left on the stone, those men had died.
McGregor was running away. The camels was chasing him. He was trapped by the river Lyon. He jumped from one big stone to another. The Campbell's dogs were not going to the river, so McGregor escaped. The dog's stone is up at Logs. At Invergowrie, that's where I live, Fian McCool and all the soldiers were chucking meat to the dogs at the dog stone. If they caught it, well, that was good. They stayed in the pack. But if they didn't, they were sent away. Finn McCool's dog, Bran, always caught it, so that was good.
There are also songs like the Glen Lyon Laments.
we made our own version of the Glen Lyon lament. It's so important to keep the traditional stories going. No one will know about anything in the Highlands if we forget them.
As we head away from the Highland Perthshire, we come to Dunkeld, home to the famous fiddle player Neil Gow. The history hunters researched Neil Gow and the history of Dunkeld in the local archive. They found his grave, and they also created artwork celebrating his music. They even wrote new lyrics to the tune of Neil Gow's lament for his second wife.
Of nature.
So there we are, learning about the past, gathering the information and making sense of our story, and making sure that the knowledge is passed on for future generations. Treasure isn't always something you can put in a box or behind a glass case. Sometimes the real treasure is in a well-worn story passed on from generation to generation. Such stories pass through time in a more fragile form than a standing stone. Without them being told, they will simply disappear. Reminders of our heritage are everywhere. It's not just in the history books. It's in the names of our streets, in the walls of our houses, the places that we walk, the songs that we sing, and the tales that we share. So near you, tucked away somewhere, waiting to be discovered, will be your own journey of discovery. Sharing is the way in which the knowledge is passed on for future generations, and that sharing will make sure that so many others can be inspired to take their own journey of discovery.